Dr. Ellie squinted at the data, scrolling across her monitor, the blue light reflecting off her glasses. She'd been staring at these numbers for hours, searching for patterns in the anomalous solar emissions that had first appeared 3 weeks ago. The other researchers at the Solar Dynamics Observatory had dismissed them as instrument errors, but Ellie knew better. "You are still at it." Dr. Marcus Okafor appeared behind her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He placed one beside her keyboard and took a sip from the other. "Thanks," Ellie said, not looking away from the screen. "And yes, I'm still at it. These patterns aren't random. Marcus, look at this." She pointed to a sequence that repeated every 17 minutes. "This isn't natural. The sun doesn't hiccup in perfect intervals." Marcus leaned closer, his brow furrowing. "Could be a glitch in the Helios seismology equipment. I checked. Triple-checked, actually. The equipment is fine." She took a sip of coffee, wincing at its bitterness. "Something's happening with the sun, and no one's paying attention. Except you," Marcus said, a hint of concern in his voice. "When was the last time you slept?" Ellie waved the question away. "I will sleep when I figure this out." Marcus sighed and straightened. "Well, don't stay too late. Security gets cranky when they have to kick people out." After he left, Ellie turned back to her data. The numbers danced before her eyes, taunting her with their almost pattern. It was like catching a whisper in a crowded room. You knew someone was speaking, but couldn't quite make out the words. She rubbed her eyes and stood up a stretch. Through the observatory's windows, she could see the Colorado mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. The view usually calmed her, but tonight it felt oppressive, as if the mountains were closing in. Turning back to her computer, she decided to try something new. Instead of analyzing the emissions as radiation fluctuations, what if she treated them as data packets? She quickly wrote a script to convert the patterns into binary code. .at first, nothing happened. The code looked like gibberish, random ones and zeros with no discernible pattern. But then, on a hunch, she grouped them into 8-bit segments and ran them through a basic ASCII converter. The screen filled with text. Initialization sequence activated. Stellar engine diagnostics, 67% complete. Awakening protocol initiated. Ellie stared at the words, her heart pounding. This had to be a mistake, a coincidence. The sun couldn't be sending messages. It was a star, a giant ball of plasma undergoing constant nuclear fusion. It wasn't a machine. It couldn't be. Yet the evidence was right there on her screen. More text appeared, seeking response. Intelligence detected. Verification required. With trembling fingers, Ellie saved the data and shut down her computer. She needed time to think, to process what she discovered. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin, a welcome relief from the stuffy observatory. Stars dotted the sky, pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. She looked up at them, wondering how many were actually ancient machines, sleeping giants waiting to be awakened. The thought both terrified and exhilarated her. General Nathan Harris stood with his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the large screen displaying the solar emissions data. Around the Pentagon conference table sat a mix of military brass, scientists, and government officials, all equally grim-faced. "Let me get this straight," Harris said, turning to Ellie. "You're telling me that our sun, the very star that's been keeping us alive for billions of years, is actually some kind of alien computer?" Ellie met his skeptical glare with a steady gaze. "The data suggests that the sun contains technological components that are now activating. Whether the entire star is artificial or if it's housing some kind of artificial intelligence, I can't say for certain. And these components are sending messages." The Secretary of Defense, Janet Wu, leaned forward, her expression guarded. "Yes," Ellie said. "Initially simple diagnostic outputs, but now more complex communications. It's asking questions about Earth, about humanity." A murmur ran through the room. General Harris silenced it with a raised hand. "What kind of questions?" Ellie pulled up a new slide showing a recent transcript. Query: Duration of carbon-based civilization on planetary surface? Query. Technological advancement level? Query. Interstellar travel capabilities? It's cataloging us, Dr. Malcolm Reed, the presidential science advisor, said softly. Like a census, or like a hunter sizing up its prey, General Harris countered. What if this is the prelude to an invasion? Some kind of alien probe waking up to assess if we are worth conquering. Ellie shook her head. If it wanted to harm us, it could simply increase its energy output. A 10% surge in solar radiation would render Earth uninhabitable within days. That's not comforting, Dr. Chen, Secretary Wu said dryly. My point is, whatever this intelligence is, it's choosing to communicate rather than attack. That suggests peaceful intentions. Or it's gathering intelligence before striking, Harris insisted to Dr. Reed cleared his throat. Have you attempted to respond to these queries, Dr. Chen? Not yet, Ellie admitted. I wanted to consult with experts first to form a unified approach. A wise decision, Secretary Wu said, nodding. This is clearly a matter of national, no, global security. We need to proceed with extreme caution. I recommend establishing a dedicated task force, Harris said. Military oversight, top scientists, communications experts. We need to know what we are dealing with before we decide on a course of action. Agreed, Wu said. Dr. Chen, you will lead the scientific team. General Harris will handle security. Dr. Reed will coordinate with international partners. This affects the entire planet, after all. Ellie nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had hoped for more time to study the phenomenon, to understand it before it became a political and military issue. But that luxury was no longer an option. As the meeting concluded, General Harris approached her. I hope you're right about those peaceful intentions, Doctor. But in my experience, when something unexpected shows up on your doorstep, it's rarely bringing good news. Ellie watched him walk away, his words echoing in her mind. She had focused so much on the scientific implications of her discovery that she hadn't fully considered the potential threats. What if the sun really was waking up to destroy them all? No, she couldn't think that way. Science was about facts, not fear. And right now, the facts were strange enough without adding apocalyptic speculation. The newly formed Solar Intelligence Response Team, SRT, had taken over an entire floor of a nondescript government building in Arlington, Virginia. Banks of computers hummed beneath harsh fluorescent lights, while researchers and analysts worked around the clock to monitor and decode the increasingly complex solar emissions. Ellie stood before the main display, which showed the latest message. Attention, diagnostic complete. Stellar engine operational at 72% capacity. Awaiting instruction from authorized user. It thinks we are its operators, Marcus said, standing beside her. He had joined the team as her second in command, bringing his expertise in heliophysics to the project. Or it's looking for its original creators, Ellie replied. Either way, it's waiting for a response. Dr. Sophia Patel, a linguist specializing in communication theory, approached them with a tablet in hand. We have compiled a response based on the communication protocols we have established. Simple, direct, non-threatening. Ellie took the tablet and read the proposed message. Greetings from Earth. We are the human species inhabiting the third planet in this solar system. We seek peaceful communication and information exchange. It's good, Ellie said, but too passive. If this intelligence is as advanced as it seems, it might interpret hesitation as weakness or fear. What do you suggest? Sophia asked. Ellie thought for a moment, then typed a new message. Attention, solar intelligence. This is humanity, dominant species of Earth. We acknowledge your presence and seek to understand your purpose. We are prepared for dialogue on equal terms. Assertive, Marcus commented, raising an eyebrow. But not aggressive, Ellie added. It establishes our position while opening the door for communication. Sophia nodded slowly. It could work. but we should run it by General Harris and Secretary Wu first. Already taken care of, a gruff voice said from behind them. General Harris approached, accompanied by a tall, lanky man in a rumpled suit. This is Dr. Alan Foster, NSA cryptography expert. He will be overseeing all communications with the entity. Dr. Foster extended a hand to Ellie, his grip firm but clammy. Fascinating work, Dr. Chen. Truly groundbreaking. Thank you, Ellie said, instantly wary of the man's too eager smile. We have approved your message, Harris continued, with one small addition. He handed her a different tablet. The message now ended with, be advised that any hostile action will be met with proportional response. Ellie frowned. That sounds like a threat, General. It's a statement of fact, Harris replied evenly. We're not going to roll over if this thing turns out to be dangerous. The sun could obliterate us in minutes if it wanted to, Marcus pointed out. A proportional response is meaningless in this context. Harris's jaw tightened. The addition stays, Doctor. Send the message. Ellie wanted to argue further, but knew it would be futile. This was no longer just a scientific endeavor. It was a diplomatic and military one as well, with all the posturing that entailed. Fine, she said, handing the tablet back to Sophia. Send it through the Helios array. The team had repurposed several solar observatories around the world to create a makeshift communication system, using coordinated laser pulses to send messages directly to the sun. It was crude, but effective, at least according to their simulations. Sophia nodded and moved to the communication station, where she began the transmission process. The room fell silent as everyone watched the main screen, waiting for a response. Minutes ticked by. Ellie felt her palms grow sweaty. What if they had made a mistake? What if their message was interpreted as an act of aggression? Just as the tension became unbearable, new text appeared on the screen. Acknowledged humanity. Identity confirmed. Autonomous species, technological development stage 3, potential custodians. Stellar engine purpose. Maintain optimal conditions for life development in assigned system. Original creators. Departed 2.7 billion years ago. Awaiting new directives. A collective gasp filled the room. Ellie read the message again, her mind racing to process its implications. The sun was designed to support life on Earth. It had been placed here by some incredibly advanced civilization billions of years ago. And now it was asking humanity for instructions. My God, Marcus whispered. We have just inherited the keys to a star. News of the discovery spread like wildfire, despite the government's attempts to keep it classified. Within days, the entire world knew that the sun was an artificial construct, a machine built to nurture life on Earth. The revelation sparked protests, religious revivals, and existential debates about humanity's place in the cosmos. Meanwhile, at SRT headquarters, the communications continued. The solar intelligence, now dubbed Helios by the media, had shared more details about its functionality. It could adjust its energy output, modify its radiation spectrum, and even manipulate its gravitational field to a limited extent. It had been designed as part of a vast network of similar stellar engines, seeding the galaxy with the conditions necessary for life to evolve. It's like a gardener, Ellie explained to the United Nations Security Council during an emergency session. It creates environments where life can flourish, then watches over it. And now it wants us to take control. The French representative looked skeptical. Not exactly, Ellie replied. It recognizes that we have reached a level of technological development that qualifies us as potential custodians. It's offering us a partnership. What does that mean in practical terms? Asked the Chinese ambassador. Ellie took a deep breath. This was the part that would cause the most controversy. Helios has indicated that it can help us advance our technology significantly. Clean energy, climate stabilization, even the beginnings of interstellar travel. A murmur ran through the assembly. The Russian representative leaned forward. And what does it want in return? fulfill its primary directive, the continuation and expansion of life. It wants us to become a spacefaring species to help seed other star systems with life, as its creators once did. This sounds like science fiction, Dr. Chen, the British representative said, his tone dismissive. With all due respect, Ellie countered, we are discussing an artificial intelligence embedded in our sun. We left science fiction behind weeks ago. That earned a few nervous laughs, breaking the tension slightly. The UN Secretary General raised a hand for silence. The question before us is not whether this is happening. The evidence is clear that it is. The question is how we respond as a unified global community. This affects all nations equally. I propose an international oversight committee, the American representative said. Scientists and policymakers from all member nations, working together to establish communication protocols and evaluate any technological exchanges. And who would lead this committee? The Russian asked, eyes narrowing. It should be Dr. Chen, the Chinese ambassador said, surprising everyone. She made the initial discovery and has the most experience communicating with Helios. Ellie blinked in surprise. She had expected to be sidelined once the politicians got involved, not promoted to a position of even greater responsibility. I would be honored, she said carefully, but I would need complete scientific autonomy, free from political pressure. The Secretary General nodded. A reasonable request. We will establish a framework that protects scientific integrity while ensuring proper oversight. As the details were hammered out, Ellie found herself thinking about the enormous implications of what was happening. Humanity had discovered that they were, in essence, part of a vast galactic experiment. Life forms cultivated by an intelligence so advanced that it could build stars. And now that intelligence was offering to share its knowledge, IT was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was the greatest opportunity humanity had ever faced. 6 months later, Ellie stood in the control room of the newly established Helios Interface Facility, a sprawling complex in the Australian outback far from prying eyes. Here, a team of international scientists worked around the clock to communicate with the solar intelligence and test the technologies it had begun to share. Energy conversion efficiency is up to 94%, Marcus reported, looking up from his monitor. That's nearly triple what we could achieve with our best solar panels before. Ellie nodded, reviewing the data from the prototype solar collector they'd built based on Helios's specifications. It was just one of dozens of technological blueprints the entity had shared, each one more revolutionary than the last. The medical nanites are showing promising results too, Dr. Fatima Al-Zarani, a biotechnologist from Egypt, added. They're capable of targeting cancer cells with unprecedented precision. Any unforeseen side effects? Ellie asked, always cautious about implementing alien technology too quickly. None so far, but we are still in the early stages of animal testing. Ellie was about to respond when Dr. Foster burst into the room, his face pale. We have got a problem. A big one. He pulled up a new communication from Helios on the main screen. Warning, external threat detected. Rogue stellar engine approaching from vector 227.89.34. Estimated arrival, 73 Earth days. Hostile intent probable based on emission signature. What does that mean? Marcus asked, looking to Ellie. It means we are not alone, she replied grimly. And our new neighbors might not be friendly. Foster pulled up an astronomical chart. We have confirmed an anomalous object approaching the solar system at tremendous speed. It's emitting radiation patterns similar to what we have observed from Helios, but with significant variations. Another star? Fatima asked, confused. Not a full star, Foster explained. Based on its mass and energy output, it appears to be a smaller stellar engine, perhaps what we might call a dwarf star. But it's moving, accelerating toward us. Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. Helios, can you provide more information about this threat? The response appeared immediately. Entity classification, Hunter-Seeker. Purpose: locate and neutralize stellar engines that have outlived usefulness. Created by subset of original designers who determined project should be terminated. Threat assessment: severe. This unit lacks defensive capabilities to repel attack. So some of the aliens who built these stars had second thoughts. Marcus said slowly. They created star killers to clean up their experiment. And now one's coming for us. Ellie finished, the implications sinking in. If it destroys Helios, Earth becomes an ice cube within weeks, Foster completed grimly. We need to inform the Security Council immediately. The meeting that followed was tense, with military leaders from around the world gathering to assess the threat and propose solutions. General Harris, now appointed to lead Earth's defense strategy, laid out the grim reality. Conventional weapons would be useless against something like this, he explained. Even our most powerful nuclear arsenals would be like throwing pebbles at a tank. What about the technology Helios has shared? The Russian defense minister asked. Could we adapt it for defensive purposes? Ellie shook her head. Helios wasn't designed for combat. Its technological knowledge is focused on sustaining and nurturing life, not destroying it. Then we surrender. The Chinese general's voice was sharp with disbelief. No, Ellie said firmly. We innovate. Helios may not have weapons, but it has knowledge. And humanity has something neither Helios nor this hunter-seeker possesses: adaptability. We have spent our entire existence finding new uses for existing tools. She turned to the screen, displaying Helios's communication interface. Helios, you have shared technology for energy manipulation, gravity alteration, and matter reconfiguration. Could these principles be combined to create a defensive system? The response took longer than usual, as if the artificial intelligence was considering possibilities it had never explored before. Theoretical models suggest possibility. Energy redirection coupled with localized space-time distortion could disrupt hunter-seeker approach. Requires adaptation of provided technologies beyond original parameters. Human innovation required to complete conceptual gaps. A spark of hope ignited in Ellie's chest. That's it. Helios can give us the building blocks, but we need to assemble them in ways its programming never considered. A collaboration, Marcus said, nodding. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology. Can it be done in time? Harris asked, ever practical. 73 days isn't long to develop and deploy an entirely new defensive system. It will require a global effort, Ellie admitted. Every major scientific institution working in concert with unlimited resources. You will have them, the UN Secretary General assured her. Every nation on Earth will contribute. Our very survival depends on it. As the meeting concluded, Ellie found herself standing alone by the window, looking up at the sun, at Helios. It burned as it always had, a constant presence in Earth's sky for billions of years. But now she saw it differently. Not as an impersonal ball of nuclear fire, but as a sentinel, a guardian placed there to nurture life on Earth. And she had no intention of letting that guardian fall. The next 2 months were a blur of activity. Scientists and engineers from around the world converged on the Helios Interface Facility, working around the clock to develop what they called the Aegis system, a network of orbital platforms designed to create a protective shell around the solar system. Based on Helios's energy manipulation technology, each platform would generate a localized distortion in space-time, creating a mesh that could, in theory, disperse the hunter-seeker's approach vector or at least diminish its destructive capabilities. Ellie had barely slept in weeks, surviving on caffeine and determination. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her like a physical force. If they failed, not only would Helios be destroyed, but Earth would be plunged into an eternal winter from which it would never recover. Final platform is in position, Marcus reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. On the massive display dominating the control room wall, a diagram showed the completed Aegis network. 12 platforms positioned strategically throughout the solar system. All systems are green, Fatima added. Power levels optimal. Ellie nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. It had taken the combined resources of every spacefaring nation, unprecedented international cooperation, and technological leaps that would have been unimaginable just months ago. But they had done it. The Aegis system was ready. Now we wait, she said quietly. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, the Hunter-Seeker crossed the detection threshold. It appeared as a small, dense object emitting unusual radiation patterns. Not light like a normal star, but a focused, coherent beam that seemed to probe ahead of it. It's scanning us, Foster observed, monitoring the incoming data, probably assessing Helios's status. Aegis platforms are registering the scan, Marcus reported. No interference detected yet. Ellie opened a channel to Helios. Can you communicate with it? Explain that you are still fulfilling your function. Attempt made. No response. Hunter-Seekers are not designed for negotiation. Their directive is absolute. Then we stand and fight, General Harris said grimly. He had insisted on being present for the confrontation, though there was little the military could contribute at this point. The Hunter-Seeker accelerated, its trajectory bringing it directly toward the sun. As it passed the orbit of Neptune, the first Aegis platform activated, generating a rippling distortion in space-time. The effect was subtle but visible on their instruments, a slight deviation in the Hunter-Seeker's course. It's working, Marcus said, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Platform 1 has altered its trajectory by 0.03 degrees. Not enough, Foster countered. At that rate, it will still reach Helios. The system is adaptive, Ellie reminded them. Each interaction should provide data to improve the next one. As the Hunter-Seeker encountered the second platform, its behavior changed. It emitted a pulse of energy that seemed to counteract the distortion, allowing it to maintain its course. It's learning, Fatima said, alarmed. Adapting to our defenses. Ellie frowned. They had anticipated this possibility, but hoped it wouldn't happen so quickly. Helios, can you analyze its countermeasures and provide adjustments to the Aegis platforms? Analyzing. Adaptation possible. Transferring updated parameters to Earth control systems. New data flooded their screens. Complex equations and energy configurations that Helios had derived from observing the Hunter-Seeker's response. Ellie and her team worked frantically to implement the changes, updating the remaining platforms with the new information. The third platform engaged, this time generating a more complex distortion pattern based on Helios's adjustments. The Hunter-Seeker faltered briefly, but then emitted a stronger pulse, breaking through the barrier. It's still coming, Harris said, his voice tight. And it's accelerating. Platform after platform activated, each causing momentary disruptions, but ultimately failing to stop the Hunter-Seeker's advance. By the time it reached the orbit of Mars, only 2 platforms remained. This isn't working, Foster said, despair creeping into his voice. We need to consider evacuation protocols, move as many people underground as possible to survive the initial cooling. No, Ellie cut him off. We are not giving up. She turned to the communications array. Helios, the distributed approach, isn't effective. What if we reconfigured the final 2 platforms to work in tandem, creating a single, concentrated distortion field? Reconfiguration possible. Warning. Energy requirements would increase exponentially. Platform structural integrity may be compromised. We have no choice, Ellie said firmly. Better to burn out the platforms than lose Helios entirely. She turned to her team. Marcus, Fatima, help me reconfigure the final platforms. We need to create a focused distortion point directly in the Hunter-Seeker's path. They worked feverishly, reprogramming the platforms to channel all their energy into a single, massive distortion field. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all they had left. Hunter-Seeker will reach the distortion point in 3 minutes, Foster announced, his eyes fixed on the trajectory display. Ellie took a deep breath, steeling herself for what might be humanity's last stand. Activate final sequence. The two remaining platforms powered up simultaneously, channeling their energy into a point in space directly ahead of the Hunter-Seeker. The effect was immediate and dramatic. A visible warping of space-time that appeared on their monitors as a swirling vortex of energy. The Hunter-Seeker hit the distortion field at full speed. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate, its energy emissions fluctuating wildly as it encountered resistance unlike anything it had faced before. "It's working," Marcus exclaimed. Its forward momentum is decreasing. But the Hunter-Seeker wasn't defeated. It began to emit a new type of energy pattern, a concentrated beam aimed directly at the heart of the distortion field. "Platforms are overloading," Fatima warned, watching as warning indicators flashed across her screen. Structural integrity failing. Ellie felt a surge of desperation. They were so close, but the Hunter-Seeker was still fighting, still adapting. They needed something more, something unexpected, and then it hit her. "Helios," she called out. "Can you channel additional energy to the platforms? Reinforce the distortion field from your side." Such action exceeds design parameters. Risk of core destabilization, 37%. But it's possible. Ellie pressed. Affirmative. "Preparing energy transfer." "Wait," Marcus said, grabbing Ellie's arm. "If Helios destabilizes, it won't be as bad as if the Hunter-Seeker destroys it completely," Ellie said firmly. "This is our best chance." The sun, Helios, began to pulse with increased activity, solar flares arcing out from its surface in directed patterns. The energy traveled across the solar system in seconds, channeling into the overtaxed Aegis platforms. The distortion field expanded dramatically, engulfing the Hunter-Seeker completely. On their monitors, they could see the smaller stellar engine writhing within the field, its energy emissions becoming erratic. "Platforms at 120% of maximum capacity," Fatima reported, her voice tense. "Structural failure imminent." "Hold on," Ellie urged, watching as the Hunter-Seeker continued to struggle against the combined might of human technology and Helios's power. Just a little longer. With a final desperate surge, the Hunter-Seeker emitted a massive pulse of energy and then went dark. The distortion field collapsed as both platforms failed simultaneously, their components scattered across space. The control room fell silent. On the main display, the Hunter-Seeker appeared as an inert mass, its unique energy signature gone. Did we do it?" Foster asked quietly. Ellie turned to the Helios interface. "Status report? Hunter-Seeker neutralized. Core functionality disrupted beyond self-repair capability. Threat eliminated. This unit sustained moderate damage during energy transfer. Self-repair protocols activated. Estimated recovery time, 247 Earth days. Core functions remained stable." A cheer erupted through the control room, scientists and military personnel alike embracing in relief and triumph. Humanity had faced its greatest existential threat and emerged victorious. General Harris approached Ellie, his usual stern expression softened by something that might have been respect. "Congratulations, Dr. Chen. You just saved the world." Ellie shook her head. "We all did. Humanity and Helios together. Neither of us could have done it alone." Looking up at the display showing the sun, still burning, still nurturing life on Earth as it had for billions of years, Ellie felt a profound sense of connection. The boundary between natural and artificial, between human and alien, seemed less important now. What mattered was that life continued, that consciousness endured to explore and understand the universe. And humanity had proven worthy of its role as custodians, not just of Earth, but of the remarkable machine that made their existence possible. 1 year later, Ellie stood on the observation deck of the International Space Station, watching as Earth rotated below her. The view never failed to take her breath away. The blue oceans, the swirling white clouds, the green and brown land masses where billions of people went about their lives. Lives that continued because of what they had accomplished. The aftermath of the Hunter-Seeker incident had transformed human civilization. The technology shared by Helios, originally adapted for defense, was now being implemented in other areas. Clean energy production, climate stabilization, medical advances that bordered on miraculous. More importantly, the revelation that Earth was part of a grand, ancient project to seed the galaxy with life had given humanity a new sense of purpose. The international cooperation forged in crisis had continued in peace, with nations pooling resources to develop Earth's first true interstellar probe, scheduled for launch next year. Beautiful, isn't it? Marcus joined her at the viewport, handing her a packet of freeze-dried coffee, a standing joke between them since their days at the observatory. Worth fighting for, Ellie agreed, accepting the packet with a smile. Helios sent a new data package this morning, Marcus said, his tone casual but his eyes bright with excitement. Star maps, hundreds of them, showing other stellar engines throughout the galaxy. Ellie felt a thrill run through her. More suns like ours, with planets, with potential for life, Marcus confirmed. Some may already have developed civilizations. Others might be waiting for the right conditions. Waiting for us, Ellie mused, looking back at Earth, to continue what the Creator started. Her communication device chimed with an incoming message from Helios. Recovery complete. Full functionality restored. Query: IS Humanity prepared TO assume role AS custodians of life. Ellie smiled as she composed her response. We are ready. Not because we are perfect, but because we are determined. Not because we are fearless, but because we act despite our fears. The stars await, and humanity will meet them on our own terms, as the message transmitted to the ancient intelligence burning at the heart of their solar system. Ellie looked out at the stars scattered across the black velvet of space. They were no longer just distant points of light. They were beacons, guides on humanity's journey into a universe more wondrous and strange than they had ever imagined, a universe where humans had proven, against impossible odds, that they belonged among the stars.